Day 2, problem 1. Part A, identify the x-intercept and y-intercept for the graph of the linear equation 3x minus 2y is equal to 12. And then in Part B, once we've figured out those two things, we can graph the equation. It's going to be a diagonal line drawn on this grid. Okay. Now, in Part A, the x-intercept refers to a dot that is on the x-axis. So here's the x-axis going across the grid, and somewhere on there is going to be a dot, and that dot is called the x-intercept for the diagonal line that is the graphical representation for this equation. So to find the x-intercept, one way to do it is to realize that any dot that lies on the x-axis will have as its y-coordinate 0, because to be on this line here means that we didn't go up or down at all. And so the y-coordinate for a dot would have to be a 0 so that the dot is not moved up or down from the origin. And so to find the x-intercept, we can make that assumption that the value of y is 0. So I'm going to write this equation, and when I get to the letter y, substitute in 0. And then it says equals 12. So here was our original linear equation. Here's that equation again, but in this position where the letter y was, I have filled in a 0. And now we can solve this. So here is the 3x, and then 2 times 0 is just 0. There is a 0 in this position, and then equals 12. And so we now have 3x is equal to 12. And that means that x is equal to, 3 times 4 would equal 12. X must equal 4. And this value of x, when y is 0, is called the x-intercept. Now, as an ordered pair, that is 4, 0. And let's remember that, because when we get to Part B and we graph this equation, we're going to put a dot on the grid at 4, 0, which will be on the x-axis. Okay. Now the y-intercept. We can find the y-intercept by realizing something about dots that lie on the y-axis. Now the y-axis on a grid is this line here running up and down, and any dot that's on that line will have as its x-coordinate a 0, because when x is 0, that means we don't move to the right or to the left at all. We only go up or down to get to wherever the dot is on the y-axis. And so to find the y-intercept, we can assume x is 0. I'm going to start with this original linear equation, and when I get to the letter x, substitute in a 0. So 3 times 0. And then it goes minus 2y equals 12. So minus 2y is equal to 12. And we can solve this. 3 times 0 is 0, so there is a 0 in this position. And then minus 2y can be brought straight down, and equals, and the 12 can be brought straight down. And so we've created the equation negative 2y is equal to 12. Let's solve that for y. So y is equal to, let's see, negative 2 times negative 6 would equal to positive 12. So y is equal to negative 6. That is the y-intercept. When we graph later on, there's going to be a dot on the y-axis at negative 6. As an ordered pair, this could be written as 0, negative 6. All right, now I've referred to graphing a few times. Let's go ahead and do that. Part B, graph the equation. It is going to be a diagonal line. And to find a diagonal line, if we can find a couple of dots, we could then connect those dots with a nice straight line. And so one of the dots that we have already figured out is called the x-intercept, it is somewhere on the x-axis, and we discovered that it is at 4, 0. So starting at the origin, let's find 4, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is the dot called the x-intercept. Now another dot that we've already figured out was the y-intercept. It is on the y-axis. We discovered that it will be at 0, -6. So starting at the origin, -6 means to go down 6 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here is a dot called the y-intercept. And with these two dots, we can draw a nice straight line through them, and that is the graphical representation of this original equation. Now, day 2, problem 2. The cost of music lessons, C of n, is a function of the number of lessons, n. The instructor charges $25 for materials, plus $12 per lesson. Question A, write a function equation for the situation. And then in part B, we're going to use that equation to figure out costs at various numbers of lessons. You know, how much does it cost for 4 lessons, and how much does it cost for 8 lessons, and so on. So let's start with part A. We are asked to write a function equation. Now, our equation is going to have numbers in it. It's going to have an equal symbol. It's going to have variables. And in this question, we're told specifically what numbers we need to use and what the variables are. Okay? We're going to write an equation for the cost of music lessons. And we're told to use these symbols here to be the cost of the lessons. C of n is how you say that. And so C of n is equal to, in words, this means the cost of the music lessons is equal to. Okay? Let's see. It says that this is a function of the number of lessons, n. The word function in this problem means that the cost of the lessons depends on how many lessons you have. So this relationship of the cost being dependent on the number of lessons you pay for is what the word function is getting at here. Now, the instructor charges a $25 materials fee plus $12 per lesson. Now, we can write that in symbols like this. $25 plus, and now we want to show in symbols $12 per lesson. Now, in this problem, it told us that we're going to use the variable n to count the number of lessons that we pay for. And so showing in symbols $12 per lesson could be written as 12 times n. And so this equation, C of n, is equal to 25 plus 12n, is a function equation. This symbol right here with the C and the parentheses and the n is called function notation. This is a function equation for our situation. Now, in part B, we can use that equation to find our cost, that is to figure out the value of C of n for different numbers that we put in for n. We can figure out for 4 lessons by filling in a 4 for the letter n. The letter n was keeping track of the number of lessons. Okay? So if we fill in 4 for n, then on the right side of the equals, when we come across the letter n again, let's fill in 4. Okay? So C of 4, which means the cost of 4 lessons, is equal to 25 plus 12 times 4. So that is 25 plus 12 times 4 is 48, and 25 add 48 is $73. $73. Okay? So we have figured out that C of 4, which means the cost of 4 lessons, is equal to $73. Now we're also asked to figure out what is the cost of 8 lessons. So in function notation, we could write that as C of 8, where we are replacing the letter N, which is representing the number of lessons, with 8, because we're interested in what is the cost of 8 lessons. Okay, and that is equal to 25 plus 12, and then again for N, remember we're filling in the number 8. So 25 plus 12 times 8. Okay. So C of 8 is equal to 25 plus 12 times 8 is 96. So let's figure out what 25 plus 96 is. Okay. 5 plus 6 is 11. Carry the 1. And 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 9 is 12. $121. 8 lessons cost $121. Okay, one more to go. What about 20 lessons? If we want to figure out the cost of 20 lessons, then in function notation, that can be represented as C of 20. And using our equation from earlier, we know we can find the cost of any number of lessons by going 25 plus 12 times the number of lessons. So 25 plus 12 times 20 lessons. What does that make? So C of 20 is equal to 25 plus, now 12 times 20 is 240, and 25 plus 240 is $265. And so we have figured out the cost for 4 lessons is $73, 8 lessons, $121, and 20 lessons is $265.